Okay, here's what I'm going to show you next. Okay, what do we see here? What's that red circle say? Thyroid. We're talking about the thyroid today. And so how does cortisol affect thyroid function? Well, first of all, let's define thyroid function. Most of us have heard that term. I can tell you that hypo and hyperthyroidism is more common in women than in men, but it doesn't mean men can't have it. Absolutely they can. The thyroid hormone is a very tender, sensitive hormone that resides in the throat. When it's inflamed, we can get voice changes and a hot sensation in the throat. That's called thyroiditis. And if you have that, you want to see a medical doctor. Or talk to your naturopath. They'll probably refer you to a medical doctor as well. But you can start with your basic testing with your naturopath if you don't have access to your medical doctor immediately. Usually you have access to your naturopath at least within a week. Okay? This is an urgent situation. Okay, so if you've got burning in your throat and you have heart palpitations and like a racing feeling, your voice is kind of changing, you're having a hard time swallowing, and you're having heat flushes or hot flashes, you kind of like you got glistening skin, that might be a thyroid problem that needs medical attention right away, okay? But let's back up. What the heck's a thyroid problem? That's a pretty extreme example. That's hyperthyroidism, and that's an immediate concern. So I wanted to start off with that. And yes, we're still talking about cortisol. Okay, now that we've got that out of the way, let's talk about the more common thyroid dysfunction, hypothyroidism. Hypothyroidism, what is that? Underactive thyroid. Underactive thyroid. What happens in underactive thyroid? We have the blues, we might feel a little depressed, we don't have the ambition, the get up and go that we used to have. We're probably gaining weight, though not always. We're probably chilly at least some of the time, even though sometimes we can also be dealing with hot flashes or heat flushes. Having heat doesn't mean we don't have a thyroid problem. There's going to be darkness around our eyes, and we're just going to feel kind of, we don't look right. We want to put extra eye cream on. We feel like we're going to, oh, it's time for the anti-aging cream to start happening, you know. Our hair is going to feel a little more frizzy. It's going to lack that luster and that color that we're used to having in our hair. It's going to be lacking that. It's going to be kind of crimpy maybe, frizzy possibly, even if it's kind of fine, thin, straight hair anyway. We are going to be grumpy. If we're very type A and driven individuals, we may not actually notice that we're having thyroid problems. But what we might notice is that we are having a harder time getting through our to-do list. So we might be able to get our workday done, but the dishes are piling up, or the laundry is piling up, or we're just looking at that pile of laundry. We just want to burst into tears. That may not be a mental problem, it may be a physical problem. Overwhelm is, in my experience, probably the first sign that there's a thyroid problem. Overwhelm doesn't actually equal thyroid problem. We know that. There's lots of reasons for overwhelm. And thyroid problem doesn't necessarily equal overwhelm. The thyroid issues don't follow the textbook every time. But what is hypothyroidism? It's low metabolism, which is why our body temperature is lower and why we seem to be gaining weight and can't seem to take it off. We're also, if we're used to going to the gym or working out, exercising, our gains at the gym or in the classes are not as good. Or we're noticing that we can't get through our Pilates class or our bar class or whatever we're doing, our hot yoga or whatever we're doing. We're not able to get through that. Or if we're out cutting wood, we're not able to get through that either. We're just feeling like we're running low on fumes. It's like our fuel tank is getting empty quicker. Right? We just got to hop back on the tractor and get back to the house for some food or for a nap or for a coffee or something. right? We need to go have another smoke or something. Something's wrong. We don't have the ambition, we don't have the drive, and we literally don't have the strength and endurance that we used to. We feel like we're getting older, quick, and it's scary. Why am I feeling so old lately? Okay, that's the thyroid. That's the experience of the thyroid. What does it have to do with cortisol? Well, the thing about cortisol, and here's the lab test thing. This is where it gets tricky. Well, not tricky, it just gets physiological. Okay, so bear with me as I geek out on lab tests again. Thyroid stimulating hormone is the most common lab test that medical doctors and naturopathic doctors do to check for thyroid function or dysfunction. Okay? If thyroid stimulating hormone is too high, we have hypothyroidism, too low of a thyroid, okay? High TSH equals low thyroid. Why? Because we're looking at the stimulating hormone. Okay, we're not looking at the thyroid hormone. TSH is a stimulator, okay? That exists, that's produced by the brain, okay? Well, kind of. Okay, so if your TSH is elevated, you might have hypothyroidism, okay? If your TSH is too low, you might have hyperthyroidism, too much metabolism, can't sleep, wired, jittery, tired but can't sleep, tired and wired, sweaty, hot, palpitations, fluttering. Cortisol is another lab test that can be done. Very rarely will I see cortisol out of range. Cortisol has a very wide range of normal on a lab test, okay? So you're gonna see the cortisol, like, I don't know what the numbers are, but like between like, I'm gonna have to make an example, between 5 and like 95. All right, so it's a very wide range where cortisol can still be considered normal, but maybe it's not normal for us, which is why I love doing lab tests when a person's healthy. I love when someone comes in and says, I want you to do a whole thing for me, and I'm gonna spend $400, and I'm gonna get a whole screening done because I want baselines for everything, so that if something happens to me in 10 years' time, I know what my normal is when I'm healthy and feeling good. So if you've got kids out there that are heading puberty or heading into adulthood, heading off to college soon, you could consider doing a bunch of blood tests to get their normal range, so that if something happens later in life, they've got their ranges right there. They've got their baseline, what their body keeps things at in a healthy, thriving state. Very smart thing to do. Now you don't have to just rely on lab ranges of like your average population. You've got your kids' range. In the meantime, small elevations of cortisol that stay within range for a long enough period of time, let's say 6 months or more, I'm just guessing, I'm not, okay? Small elevations of cortisol that stay within range and look normal will knock thyroid hormone right out. So you'll get TSH that's out of range, okay? Cortisol fluctuation within its range on the lab test, if it increases high enough for long enough, but it still looks normal, will knock thyroid function into a hypothyroid state. It'll bring TSH at a normal eventually. But let me tell you something about TSH. That first thyroid test we do to check and see if there's an issue. There could be a thyroid issue, but TSH is not out of range yet. It takes a long time for TSH to be out of range. The body does a great job of self-regulating within its normal. But at the end of the day, if we're stressed out enough for a long enough time period, our thyroid function can lower or increase, which is not a good thing. I know sometimes for people, oh, I wish I had hyperthyroidism. No, you don't. Trust me, it's very uncomfortable. You can't think straight. Your brain doesn't work. You're not functioning. Okay? So if you've been stressed out for a long time, or if you've been pushing yourself for a long time, or if you're one of those people who just push and push, goal-oriented, but you're getting tired and something, you just don't feel like yourself anymore, yes, you're probably already looking at thyroid function on Google. You probably already read about it in a health magazine. You're probably already on a supplement for it. Let's talk. Because there's a lot of things that can be done. It's actually quite simple, but it's not as simple as it appears in the health magazines. That's a little too simplified, and so don't expect one supplement or two from a health food store to fix the problem. It is a rehabilitation process, which I walk people through over and over and over again in my practice. It's a beautiful process. It is an awesome process. I don't want you to be afraid of it. But it does take a little bit of focus and some commitment to yourself. And it is a journey that I absolutely love taking with people. So, if you suspect a thyroid problem, we can look into it. And I can walk you through the subtleties within the lab tests. And there are other thyroid tests that we can do, as well as the TSH. So lots of things we can do. And if you don't want to order blood tests, fine. It's your choice. It's your choice what you do. I'm just your guide. I'm not the boss. But I know the thyroid well. I had a TSH of 100 one time in my life. TSH above 4 is considered hypothyroidism. My TSH was 100 back in 2009. It's not anymore. But let's talk.